Hey, I know I'm usually cheeky and silly in these intros to Potterless, but I'm going to save the goofs for later on in the episode. For now, I want to talk about what's going on in the world around us because I think that it would be irresponsible not to address it. So there's two things I wanted to address really quickly: Black Lives Matter and J.K. Rowling's recent Twitter tirade. For Black Lives Matter, I've been trying to be the best ally that I can be possible. I've been using social media to share information about where you can donate or educate yourself or raise money even if you don't have funds to donate to all of these different charities and good causes. It's also the reason why I've taken a step back on social media, not posting as many Harry Potter goofs and stuff, because now isn't really the time for that, and I would rather people's social media feeds be filled with information about what's going on and how they can help the situation at hand. I think this cause is incredibly important. I've protested on behalf of this cause, and I would encourage all of you to help in any way that you can and educate yourself further. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, I wish you would just keep politics out of it, this isn't a politics issue. This is an issue about human lives, and that goes beyond politics. Also, Harry Potter is a book about standing up to injustice, so if anything, what I'm doing here is incredibly on brand by standing up to injustice. And finally, if part of you thinks all lives matter when someone says Black Lives Matter, just keep in mind that that's not the point. They're not saying only Black Lives Matter. And another way to think about this is when someone has a 5K for cancer research, do you run and tell them, oh, what about all of the other diseases? Don't all diseases deserve research funding? That's the kind of thing you're talking about. Black Lives Matter is an important movement. I'm planning to have Robin and Bayana from Wizard Team and Black Girls Create back on the podcast to talk about this, but they are understandably very busy. So I would encourage you in the meantime to educate yourself about the situation, learn how you can help, and if you are unsure of what you can do, or if you just want to talk about it, please shoot me an email, potterlesspodcast@gmail.com. I'm happy to talk this through with any of you. Now, J.K. Rowling's Twitter shenanigans. I was trying to not use social media, as I just said 35 seconds ago, and then J.K. decided to tweet transphobic things on Twitter. This is not the first time something like this has come up. Unfortunately, this is the clearest she has been about what she thinks. And she has tried to defend herself, and she has tried to say that she supports trans people, but it just doesn't seem to be the case. At this point, I'm just completely fed up with these shenanigans. It is unfortunate and it is very saddening to see the author of such a wonderful book series that is all about acceptance and inclusion not be accepting and inclusive. What she is tweeting is needlessly putting down trans and non-binary folks, and it is completely unnecessary, and it's awful, especially because it's Pride Month, and there's just a few more important things going on than to tweet about your shitty thoughts. I've never followed J.K. Rowling on Twitter. I've gone as far as to block her now, so I just don't have to see this anymore. As far as I am concerned, the Harry Potter community now belongs to the fans. This community is so welcoming and accepting. I came into this community actively seeking to dunk on Harry Potter, and people still welcomed me in with open arms and knew that their love would change me for the better, which it did. They showed so much kindness and patience and love, and I cannot believe that the woman that wrote these books doesn't want to do the same. So what I believe is that this community has grown so much since it has been started by the books that J.K. wrote. The community has gone far beyond J.K., and I don't think you need to have her be a good person or someone that we look up to as a role model anymore, because the community has gone beyond this. There are so many great people in this community. There are so many great creators in this community. There's so many people making Harry Potter content or merchandise or fan fiction or fan art, whatever it is. And every person that I've met that is contributing to this community is a wonderful person. So I would say focus on those people and don't let J.K. Rowling being awful make you feel worse or feel less about what this community is, what it means, and what it stands for. If JK wants to get her act together and realize that she has been wrong and her views are hurtful and they are making people sad and upset, great, I'll welcome her back in with open arms. But for now, I'm done with her and I'm not worried about her, and I'm just going to focus on the good, wonderful, wholesome people in this community that make it what it is. And again, if you want to talk to me about this stuff, shoot me an email at potterlesspodcast@gmail.com. I will always talk to anyone about this. I'm always happy to do so. On a happier note, there's a group of people out there that are being incredibly kind enough to support this podcast and keep it going, and those are the new patrons that we have to welcome to the team. So shout out to Julia the Fan, Michael Bratt, Abigail, Rachel Topham, Rachel Bates, Sean Gali, Alexa Villarreal, Claire, Anna Sandor, Bianca Kaushal, Tessa Tolentino, Julia Gamer, Maddie, Ali, Rachel Washart, Isabel DeChia, Anushka Enders, Nicole Sund, Sabine Blocker, Verena Friedrich, Danielle Hill, Frederick Hill, Rivka, and Brittany Smallwood, a name correction for Marvin Prain and Kelsey Gillespie. Shout out to Nina Jasalek and Ribbon Monstrosity, who upgraded to the producer level status, as well as our new producer level patrons, Matthew Babbitt, Dane Nemcher, Lisa Light, Rochelle Unutmaz, and Kirsty 60. They joined the ranks of Vicky, Aaron, Clown, Machismo, Samantha, Juan, Rosemary, Maria, Romina, Audra, Eleanor, Nikita, Ali, Amelia, Sarah, Ben, Rachel, Zachary, Orchid, Vivian, Haley, Alex, John, Noel, Liz, Brandon, Claire, Rory, Veronica, Lotta, Noah, Tracy, Colleen, Jennifer, Friday, Summer, Justin, Jacob, Maya, Mark, Polly, Zena, Harlan, Noelia, Addie, Nikki, Kine, Amanda, Alicia, Kafir, Sarah, Marta, Eileen, Keegan, Mr. Folk, Maya, Floor, Siri, Georgia, Skyla, Edel, Professor Threat, Ellie, Elizabeth, Michael, Kelly, Carrie, Connie, Jen, Nedry, Will, Samantha, Aurora, Marcos, Courtney, Marique, Ashton, Brittany, Phelan, The Meadows Family, Jenny, McKenna, Heather, Brad, Thomas, Brianna, Kevin, Lori, Chrissy, Jarl, Ashley, Peta, Sophie, Jen, and Callahan, Leah, Melissa, Bella, Melanie, Elizabeth, Britt, Becca, Reese, Adam, Joseph, Lily's mom, Tyrone, Money, Madison, Kyle, Tonks, GK, Sabrina, Sophia, Farzan, Melanie, David, Matt, Okama, Hime, Yimki, Bony, Pony, Jacob, Kelsey, Taco, Bluefish, Rike, Taylor, Rochelle, Megan, Alicia, Riley, Colleen, Laurel, Rossanne, Erica, Miranda, Landon, Kendra, Natanya, Yogan, Darcy, Richard, Sandra, Craig, Andren, K, Steve, Leor, Angela, Julia, Demi, Kelsey, Michael, Danae, Michelle, Callista, Kringle, Lovkesh, Jennifer, Crystal, Henrika, Jeremy, Delkis, Katrina, Jerica, Michelle, Casey, Megan, 1000, Zat, Serenity, Jack, Sophia, Steamed Nuggets, and Gerda Potter, who never leave to get the groceries, go down the elevator in their building, only to realize I did not put my mask on, and they have to go back up and go back in their apartment and put it on and go back down the elevator again. If you want to be like one of these amazing patrons and get access to bonus content like bonus episodes, director's commentary, exclusive monthly live streams, and more, you can head on over to patreon.com/Potterlist. But without further ado, let's get into episode 129 of Potterlist, the first of 2 episodes covering Act 2 of A Very Potter Musical, guest starring Dr. Hannah McGregor. Hello, Internet, and welcome back to another episode of Potterlist, the tale of a 28-year-old man who never read the Harry Potter series as a kid. He read them as an adult. He watched the movies and saw the plays and did other stuff, and now he is finally watching a Very Potter musical. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm that grown man, and I'm here joined today by a previous guest. She is the host of Secret Feminist Agenda, the co-host of Which Please, and a doctor. It's Dr. Hannah McGregor. Hannah, how's it going?
Very well, thank you. Let me compliment you on your excellent pronunciation of doctor.
You know, I messed it up last time you were on the show, and I wanted to make sure that I give you the credit that you are due for going to school for such a long time.
It's a very long time, and I just want to make it really clear to listeners that none of you have to call me Dr. McGregor, only Mike does.
It's only fair. It's only fair. So, Hannah, you are on this particular episode of Potterlist because way back when people really started telling me I should watch a Very Potter musical, every single person was saying that they loved it and that it was very good. And you were the only person that told me that they did not like it. Now, since then, I have heard some other people whose opinions I also respect that they are not as big as a fan of it. So I figured to balance out with Julie being the last guest, she's very pro it. I wanted to get someone on to maybe bring it back down just so we can see the full spectrum of a Very Potter musical. So before we get into it, is there just like big picture reasons why that you don't like it? Maybe it had to do with the first time you saw it, etc.
It definitely has to do with the context in which I saw it for the first time.
Okay.
I would be really surprised to find out if there were other people who encountered a Harry Potter musical for the first time in their 30s.
Okay.
Years after its original production and liked it.
All right.
I have a very strong suspicion that there is a correlation of people who are fond of this and people who have nostalgic associations with it from an early period in their Harry Potter fandom.
Got it.
I think part of it is just like I came to it at the wrong time.
All right.
You know, I watched it a couple of years ago for a Which Please episode with no previous background in it, no particular nostalgic fondness for it, no identification with the fan culture that it emerged out of. So on one hand, I am not the right audience for this.
Sure.
And that's part of like, I just have to recognize that like, this isn't for me. So it's fine with me that other people like it. But on the other hand, it's very bad.
Okay. Another reason I had you on is so that all of the pitchforks can be directed at you and away from me.
Yeah, come at me.
So if I say anything negative, you know, everyone will just blame you instead.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep,
Dr. Hannah McGregor, everyone.
That's at HKP McGregor on Twitter.
Oh my
You can
goodness.
try telling me I'm wrong, but not convinced.
So we'll get right into it and we'll see if there's any further details about why you dislike it. I will say that compared to Act 1, I was not as big of a fan of Act 2. I thought that it just wasn't as strong in terms of the jokes and the music and stuff, though there were some elements that I really did appreciate a whole heck of a lot, like anything regarding High School Musical, I'm a big fan of. So there were some moments that I really did enjoy, but I think just setting the scene, I enjoyed the first act more than the second.
Yeah, that's fair. The first act has more going on. It's tighter pacing wise, and it has way more songs.
Mhm.
The second act is really lacking in songs, which means you get more of the quote unquote jokes, which, hoo boy. And also it just seems to drag.
Yeah, I agree. What I was surprised at the end of Act 1 is that it seems like so much had already happened that I didn't know what was going to be in Act 2. And it feels like they stretched it out a bit more than it needed to be. And it got needlessly complex in a lot of different ways. And I think you're right. I think the fact that there were less songs just made it a little less fun. So when there's too much of a plot and talking and stuff, you start to think a little bit more about it. And this is the kind of thing that you don't want to really think about critically. You just want to be like, look, they turned Harry Potter into a musical. This is very fun.
It does not hold up well to critical thinking, which is part of why it doesn't work well for me, is that I tend to prefer things that you can think about and it doesn't ruin them. But I was trying to give this whole media property a little bit more credit this time around, because This is the second time I've watched it. So I did listen to some of the cast recordings of the songs.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay, no, these songs are good. Like, I get why people love these songs. Like, Not Alone is...
It's really good.
It slaps.
It's so solid.
So, like, I can see, and I was listening to a live recording, and, like, you can hear everybody in the audience is singing along, and everybody knows all the words, and it's like, yeah, okay, this is charming. The problem is everything that they have put around the edges of these songs. The sense of humor in this production is fundamentally homophobic, transphobic, fatphobic. It's all of this really sort of knee-jerk sense of humor that is like, oh, it's funny because we're suggesting this character is gay, or it's funny because we say that Hermione is fat, or it's funny because Draco is being played by a woman.
Right.
The second you start thinking about the jokes, it's like, oh no.
I agree. I think in the first act, there were still some of these moments, but there weren't as many. So it's easier to kind of push it to the side and not really worry about it too much. But unfortunately, I think they were a lot more common in this second act. And it's harder to push it away when they happen more frequently.
Yeah. It's that switched ratio of song to joke.
Yeah.
I think that really is not helping the second act.
Okay. I mean, again, it is college kid humor in 2009, so I get it.
Yeah.
And not a lot of comedy ages well. Remember when Wedding Crashers was a movie that everyone was like, this is great. This is very funny. I like this a lot. Like, times change a whole heck of a lot. So let's get into this second act of a Harry Potter musical. So I'm not incredibly well-versed in musicals. I've seen a handful, but is the beginning a play on Newsies? I don't know if it was a Newsies joke, but whatever it is, I did not like it. I don't like the extra, read all about it. It's like, shut up. I just make Harry Potter jokes.
Can we identify, it might be a Newsies reference. I also am not a musical theater expert.
Okay.
Of the many things that are not doing this recording a favor, one is the actual quality of the recording. Like, it's a very sort of tinny, sort of high level recording. So anybody who has a high voice, they pierce through the audio of this recording. And there are all of these group scenes like that opening sort of Newsies scene where somebody's yelling and it's like, oh my God, could you take it down like 100 decibels?
I can understand not knowing how to do EQ stuff. If you listen to the first 20 episodes of Potterless, dear Lord, what was I doing? It was so bad. But yeah, it doesn't help. I will say that putting closed captions on and turning the volume down helped me a lot with this viewing experience.
Where were you 500 hours ago when I was beginning to watch this 500-hour video?
So The one part of this intro that I do enjoy, though, is the portrayal of Cornelius Fudge. He has this very silly looking robe. He's wearing this very silly looking robe and just refuses to believe that he's back. And I thought that was very fun. But then the next thing that happens, which I do appreciate because it's very on brand for 2009, is that it's revealed that Voldemort has a FluTube channel where he's talking about his evil plans. And I think that's great as someone who started a YouTube channel in the year 2009.
As you were saying this, I'm like, oh, FluTube was like YouTube. Okay, I get it. Yeah, this is so many of the jokes in this are like so specific to this particular cultural moment in which it was created. I also think they're specific to being a certain age in that specific cultural moment.
Yeah, I think that could be it. I think that could be the disconnect in that even though I didn't watch this until I was 28 years old, I was about their age when they made it. So making fun of YouTube vloggers and High School Musical is incredibly on brand for me at the time.
Whereas I was too old then and I'm too old now.
Look, you're never too old for High School Musical. It is such a great quality film that teaches us important life lessons such as do not stick to the status quo. We're all in this together, and creme brulee is delicious.
The movie that teaches us that is Bring It On,
Oh.
and we don't need any other movies to teach us that.
Well, Bring It On also teaches us that white people are bad.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
one of the
very
most important lessons that you can learn is that white people's culture is almost entirely built on the systematic theft of black culture.
And then just making it worse. The burr, it's cold in here. So much better from the Clovers.
It really
so
is.
much better.
It really is. So again, like a generational myth. Like I was too old when in 2009, I was starting my PhD. I was not on YouTube. I didn't understand what YouTube was for. I still remain fundamentally confused by YouTube as a platform.
Well, it's very different now because back when I was doing it in the 2009 vlog days, it was like people telling stories and stuff, and it was very fun and people being creative. And now it's like Nazi gamers. And videos designed to get children to watch them so that you immorally raise ad revenue. I don't like YouTube that much anymore.
Seems rough. But I understand that it was a version of like that early internet culture that was genuinely radical because it provided a ton of people with a platform to create interesting art and culture for these small online viewerships. And I see how a Very Potter musical sort of fits into that in the sense of catering to the sort of young fan demographic who wanted to sort of make things for themselves. Like, I get theoretically why people like it.
It just didn't work for you, and that's fine.
It just, oh boy. Okay.
There's some people out there that think cilantro tastes like toothpaste. It's just sometimes a very good thing. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, sometimes people are wrong. Like they don't like cilantro or they do like a Very Potter musical. I'm sorry, I'm just all into the hot takes today. Okay, so the FluTube joke, I get it now. I needed you to say it out loud for me to hear that it was a joke.
Yes.
They did get a laugh out of me when Voldemort and Fudge come face to face, and Fudge says, I still don't think you're back.
Really solid. Really solid
joke.
moment later on in the play. So after this Newsies intro, Harry and Ron enter, and Ron has an enormous Hershey's bar. I have never seen a Hershey's bar this big, and I think it's great. Just purely on prop comedy of like, where does one acquire such a large chocolate bar?
You are absolutely the target demographic for this musical.
I was just impressed because initially my thought is I would assume they did multiple showings of this play. So did they buy 6 of them? Amazon wasn't really big on doing stuff in 2009. So how did they acquire it? The Hershey, Pennsylvania factory is in Pennsylvania. That's pretty far away from Michigan. I just need to know where they got it.
Whereas I'm watching this and I'm like, is the joke that the chocolate bar is big?
That's
not
the joke.
Funny.
I was genuinely impressed.
Okay. Wow.
How do they even fit that in a fridge to keep it from melting?
Do we know that it's a real chocolate bar?
Oh, if it's not, it is the most impressive prop work and fake eating that I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that's not really the caliber of the rest of the show is. It's probably just a giant chocolate bar. I wonder if they have like the base of a giant chocolate bar and then just replace the piece of it that he eats every day.
That was the other thing that I wondered was, does he just eat a little bit and then the bottom half of it is like filled in with cardboard to make it look full, but it's not? That would be the smart thing to do rather than buy 6 of these.
It could have been really cheap chocolate. Listen, we'll never be able to answer these fundamental questions.
No, never ever. So we just have to move on. So Ron is sad about Hermione, and he has a great line which gets very good until the last word, which is, every time I look at her, I have these pains in my chest, and I know it's her fault, that bitch. Which I was like, like, I get it's 2009 and we don't think as thoughtfully about the words that we use, but it was a really fun line until he called her a bitch at the end.
2009 was not that long ago, and I assure you that women didn't like being called bitches then either.
I am not I am not disagreeing or discrediting that. I do think that 2009 was a time where, when did Let's Get It Started, which was the clean version of another name of a Black Eyed Peas song,
but we knew it was
out?
bad then too.
Yeah, I remember at the time there was the thought of, did they really make the song called that? Even if people weren't as bad on saying the R word, it was still a confusing thing to be like, let's make this the chorus of a very popular song.
It's entirely wild. I just Googled, that was 2004.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's one of those things, right? That we look back at these times and we're like, oh, it was a different time then. But like, I remember 2009 really vividly. The status quo of what was acceptable in culture might be different, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't have known better.
Yes.
Because people definitely knew better.
I'm also wondering if it was a difference in high school and college or the times, because in 2009, I was a junior in high school, and that was just when people started to stop saying that's gay as a synonym for that's stupid. And that feels like a way late in the game thing. But that also could have been, I was in a high school and maybe older people were wiser, because these guys were in college when they were making this. So you would think that maybe they could have been a little bit more thoughtful.
I mean, it's just not a strength of the musical as a whole. I see very little evidence that they are being thoughtful about like how language and representation works.
Yeah, and I also think, much like what happened with Potterless, I think they could have been something where they are making something and they don't realize the audience that is going to be out there and who is going to start really enjoying this thing. So you adapt. There were early episodes of Potterless where I'm not proud of some of the things that I said and the jokes that I made, and I've adapted since. And I'm interested and excited to see how they go forward in their future musicals when they have more of a Harry Potter fan base where the Harry Potter community is very accepting, except for the person who wrote the books. And
remarkably enough.
And I hope that for iterations 2 and 3 and the stuff they've made forward, it's a bit more careful about their word choices and stuff. This could have been, they're college kids, they're making it for college friends, and they don't realize that it's going to become the thing that it has grown to be.
This is absolutely fair. I think all of us who make podcasts or do other forms of content where we're sort of thinking and growing and learning out loud have to be pretty humble when it comes to putting things out in the world that we no longer agree with.
100%.
So this
100%.
is absolutely apt. I would also not want to be held to the values that I communicated in 2009.
Right. Oh, God. I had a bowl cut in 2009. I don't want to be held to anything that I did in the year 2009.
And yet we are watching this thing that was made in 2009. So we also just have to sort of take it for what it is. And I think we can point out the problems without saying that the people who made it are monsters. Mm-hmm. But I'm still... Okay, so the bitch joke. What's next?
Yeah. Next, Ron gets mad at Harry for making everything about him, even though Harry is very rationally just trying to talk with Ron about the Voldemort situation. So these are the kind of jokes I like, when they take a Harry Potter thing and then just kind of make fun of its ridiculousness. And this is just the classic Ron always gets mad at Harry. And Harry's just very calmly like, hey, I'm going to die from Voldemort. And Ron's like, everything's about you. So I appreciated that a whole lot more. Mm-hmm. Hermione then comes in, and it's the classic, you tell him that I said and he said thing from book 4. She is also upset and tells Harry, which I think is a great joke, you're acting like Garfield on a Monday.
You thought that was a great joke?
I thought it was fun. I don't know. Maybe I just appreciated that it was a pop culture reference that I actually understood, whereas in Act 1, there was a bunch of stuff that went over my head.
This is so funny because every joke that you're like, yeah, I liked this joke, I remember consciously while watching it being like, who likes these jokes?
I appreciate when Harry Potter people talk about something that isn't Harry Potter. I think that's why I think it's very funny, is that you have like now Garfield exists in this Harry Potter world and Zac Efron exists in this Harry Potter world. And I think I appreciate those little things because I think especially what made me very upset is that there's no, if you didn't know that these Harry Potter books take place in the 90s, you would have no idea that they took place in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And it's sad that at no point in time does someone come back from summer and Hermione says, oh, my Muggle friends have these things called gel pens. And I don't know, Arthur Weasley brings home a set of Pogs for Fred and George to play with. I was very sad that there's no 90s references at all. So maybe I just appreciated that this play is not afraid of culture.
Yes, absolutely. And there is something really fun about taking the wizarding world and putting it into a particular historical moment. They're not putting it into the historical moment in which the books are set, but that's fine. They're still sort of rooting it in a historical and cultural moment. And it's so fundamental to the ways that the books are written and to the aesthetics of the movies in a lot of ways that it's trying to avoid actually locating the story in a specific cultural and historical moment. It wants to sort of be like outside of any particular time. I think that sort of lends the series some of its feeling of magic. But yeah, the basic joke of like, what if Hogwarts, but in a real historical moment, that holds up. I've seen funnier versions of those jokes on Tumblr.
Yes, the funniest one I've ever seen is the most unrealistic thing about the Harry Potter universe is that no one at any point in time goes, man, the bulls, am I right? It's so true. Like Michael Jordan was the most famous person on earth in the mid-90s, just of humans.
Absolutely. It's entirely unrealistic that none of the Muggle-born students at Hogwarts are bringing any of the culture that they're experiencing in the wider world into the conversation.
Even just little things like, hey guys, why do we use quills? Have you heard of pens?
Why does no one have a cell phone ever?
Oh, well, technology doesn't work at Hogwarts. That would make the plot too easy.
I love problems that would be solved with, I guess a pager? If it's the 90s?
Oh, that would have been great. But regardless, I enjoy Hermione standing up for herself a little bit more. I felt like she was a bit too pushover-y in Act 1, and I appreciated that in Act 2, she is a little bit more of the Hermione that we actually enjoy from the books. So Draco enters, flopping around, as always, which I think is still great. I know it's just silly physical humor, but I'm a huge fan of the squirming that Draco does throughout the desks and the chairs and stuff.
It's actually my favorite part of the entire production is the body language of Draco.
It's really good. It's really solid.
Really funny.
So Draco has a bit of an argument with Cho, Neville, and Hermione, and then Neville pantses Draco with Expelliarmus, and Draco's wearing a diaper, and that's the joke.
Yeah, that's a bad joke. It's amazing the vertigo I get watching this thing where I'm like, oh, Draco, like what a great performance. What great physical comedy. Oh, I see. The joke is about underwear.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think this act shows the full range of the jokes that they have and the full range of things landing and not landing, at least for me, because I did not find any humor in this. It feels like this act is a little more low-hanging fruit joke-filled, and this was another one where it's just like, oh, haha, they were pantsed. Great.
Wow. Low-hanging fruit coming from the guy who thought the big chocolate bar was funny. That is quite the critique.
That, to me, it's just an impressive work of culinary endeavors. It's just impressive baking.
Okay, go on.
So Snape enters and tells Draco to pull up his pants and go into his office. And what's great, and a great little prop, is that since Snape cut his hand off before to bring Voldemort back, he has a hook for a hand, and it's a very bad plastic pirate hook, which I just appreciate when this play is not afraid of showing how low budget it is, and I think the hook for a hand is very silly.
It's extremely low budget. Is it funny?
Yeah. So everyone except for Harry leaves, and then Ginny enters talking about the kiss situation. What I enjoyed here is that I've always referred to this conversation between Harry and Ginny that happens in books 6 and 7 is, I always call it the Spider-Man breakup, and they have that, but then they also literally talk about Spider-Man 2 and 3. So just from my perspective, I appreciated that they really hit the nail on the head for what they're going for.
Wow, this is absolutely working for you. I'm going to say that Ginny has the best wig in the show.
It's very red.
It's extremely red.
But looks good. I also think Draco's wig is very fun.
Draco's wig is funny. Snape's wig is terrible.
Yes, it is ridiculous.
Ginny's wig They're all bad Halloween wigs, but her wig to me is the funniest.
Yes, and the Ron wig, because he's always wearing a sweatband, like an NBA sweatband, I wondered if that was supposed to make him look like more of a jock, or if he couldn't keep his wig on his head, or a combination of the two.
I had exactly the same question. I was like, was this a character choice, or did his wig just keep falling off?
These are the hard-hitting questions I will ask when I get the interview with Ron. I'll ask him about the chocolate bar and the headband.
Yeah, wow, that is important journalism.
That's what I'm here for. Give me the Pulitzer. But there is a great quote specifically where Harry says, I don't want my life to be like Spider-Man 3. I hated that movie. And as someone that was very disappointed by Spider-Man 3, I felt kinship with this because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. And the third movie in the Tobey Maguire series let me down so much. I remember being so excited. I think that was my first ever midnight release movie that I ever went to. And I was so heartbroken because it was such a waste of time and money.
I'm sorry. I really thought you were going to say it's the first movie you ever went to. I was like, wait, how young are you? The
cinema I ever saw was Spider-Man 3.
I was 4 years old.
I was just a babe. And I saw Topher Grace as Eddie Brock for some reason.
I don't think that I've ever seen.
It is so bad.
Spider-Man 3, but putting Tobey Maguire and Topher Grace in the same movie does a real disservice to both of them.
So Dumbledore enters wearing a fake beard over his fake beard, which is pretty fun. And he tells Harry that Harry can only trust Snape and Dumbledore. So then Harry talks about not being sure if he can trust Snape because of the whole hand thing. Dumbledore says he still trusts Snape. Harry asks why, and he very quickly snaps his head and goes, because I love him.
Yep, you know what? That one was funny. That was a funny line.
I think some of the funnier things here are when they play along with fandom ideas. One of the bigger ones being Draco and Hermione, or at least Draco loving Hermione, and then this love between Dumbledore and Snape is pretty solid. And the best one, of course, is the Quirrell Voldemort thing. So the fake shipping is always a good time.
Yeah, shipping is charming. I think that it is better handled in the musical when it is glossed over as a joke.
Yes.
Like that sort of little passing reference and you get the nod and then you move on. I think the more they belabor the ship jokes, the worse they get.
I 100% agree. And that's why in the first act, one of my least favorite songs was when Draco and Ron were singing about Hermione because it's too extended. But then on the flip, when there's just the little tiny jokes, like you're saying in passing, that's what makes it very fun.
Absolutely.
Because I think what it is what makes the joke funny is everyone just going, oh, we get it. And when you say it for more than one line, it's just, yeah, okay, we get it. You don't have to, we got it. We're good. Move on.
Yeah. You know how a certain form of comedy is praised for being very joke dense. I think particularly Tina Fey show-run shows tend to be really joke dense shows. 30 Rock and The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt are like the joke per minute ratio is such that you have to revisit the show over and over again to get all of the jokes. This is the opposite. And it would be funnier if it was joke denser because when the premise of a lot of the jokes is it's funny because it's a reference to the fandom and the pleasure is recognizing the reference and then moving on. It's like the more of those you have, the funnier it is.
If you haven't seen Puffs, I think you will absolutely love Puffs because it is basically the more joke-dense version of a Harry Potter musical.
Okay. All right. Does that exist online?
It's on Amazon Prime for $12. I know, right out of the range of being cheap.
Well, and 12 American dollars is
right, Canada.
40 Canadian dollars. It's just outrageous.
I will say, though, on the reverse, when I was in Vancouver, I ate a lot of food and drank a lot of booze because for some reason, the prices are still about the same as they are in America, but with conversion rate, super cheap.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of food prices over in Vancouver.
Yeah, our food prices in general are quite good. And then when you add the conversion on top of that, it's a really affordable city to eat well in.
It's, and the food diversity in Vancouver is off the chain.
It spoiled me for other cities. Like I went to New York after I had lived here for a couple of years. And I was like, oh, I mean, New York's still good, but I don't think it's better than Vancouver. And Vancouver is way smaller.
The problem with New York, and this goes for anything, restaurants, bars, coffee shops, it's just so big and so dense that there's so many things that your life as a New Yorker is just slowly weeding out the bad things and finding the good ones and then just making note of all of those. Because you're going to walk past 12 $1 pizza slice shops on your way home from the bar. But you know that Vinnie Vincenzo's is the good one and the other 11 are garbage. It's just, you have to sometimes learn the hard way. This place sucks. I gotta go to the next one. But yeah, Vancouver, the food diversity was fantastic. And it was just food that I've never had before. I want to say I had Nigerian food, which I didn't even know was like a specific make a whole restaurant about this.
Yeah.
And I really had a great time there.
Yeah, there's fantastic Nigerian food. There's fantastic Tibetan food. There's lots of cuisines that you might not necessarily eat otherwise. Great food here. What were we talking about?
Harry Potter, of course. But happy to let you know today's episode of Potterless is brought to you by the Vancouver Tourism Board.
Come back, please. The pandemic has devastated our economy.
Oh, no. Oh, Past Mike, look at you making jokes about people that aren't actually sponsoring the podcast. You're stepping on my turf because we got to take a break so we can talk about the real sponsors of this podcast in a segment we like to call Wingardium Leviosa. Today's episode of Potterless is brought to you by BetterHelp. Let's say hypothetically that you are Dr. Hannah K. McGregor and you are about to be a guest on Potterless. You're going to be talking at length about something that you don't like. You also don't realize that this is going to be 2 parts, so much discussion about a thing you don't like. Yeah, this is not great for your mental health. You want to talk to someone about it. What could you do? You could go to BetterHelp and talk to a therapist today. If there's something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals, BetterHelp is here for you. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can start communicating in under 24 hours. You can schedule regular calls with your therapist. You can have video conferences, whatever makes the most sense for you, BetterHelp can facilitate. The service is available worldwide, and you can log into your account anytime to send a message to your counselor. The flexibility of BetterHelp is really nice because you can get help that might not be available to you locally. You don't have to deal with awkward things like waiting in a waiting room, and it's more affordable than traditional counseling. They have a bunch of testimonials on their website, betterhelp.com/reviews, so you can see what other people who are using the service have said about BetterHelp. Multitudes own Amanda McLaughlin has used BetterHelp. She loves it, and if you want to get on it too and save some money along the way, you are in luck. As a Potterless listener, you can get 10% off your first month if you go to betterhelp.com/Potterless. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Potterless, and you'll get 10% off your first month. So go to betterhelp.com/Potterless and join the over 800,000 people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced licensed professional today. Today's episode of Potterless is also brought to you by the folks at the BABY-SITTER'S CLUB CLUB podcast over at HeadGum. If you have not heard of this podcast, if you're liking Potterless, this is going to be right in your wheelhouse. Jack Shepard and Tanner Greenring bring a lot of the same energy to a children's book series. The BABY-SITTER'S CLUB series is a book about kids living in a fictional suburban town of Stony Brook, Connecticut. They start a babysitter's club, like the name suggests, and it's quite silly, and much like I do here on Potterless, these two guys take it over the top in the best way by overanalyzing these books, bringing an adult perspective, and thinking about them too hard, but just the right amount where it's a wonderful listen. Just like Potterless, they started with the main books chronologically. They've gone beyond the main series. There's a whole bunch of content that you can start listening to right now. Just search for the BABY-SITTER'S CLUB CLUB in your preferred podcasting app today. So Dumbledore ends his conversation by saying there's no chance that Snape is still a servant of Voldemort, and then you immediately cut to Snape entering a scene and going, "All hail Voldemort," which I thought was great. Not a fan?
I mean, it was fine. I don't think great is what I would call it, but juxtaposition can be funny.
So Snape is with the Death Eaters. They don't trust him, and at one point one of them says, "I heard you had your dark mark surgically removed," but eventually Snape gets them to believe, and then he says, "I'll be in the drawing room painting a picture of the stupid looks on your faces."
That's a good joke.
Pretty solid. And everything is made funnier in the voice that Snape uses. It's really solid. I love it.
I am having a really hard time recollecting it right now.
It's just like Snape. Like they make him this really prim and proper sounding guy, which I appreciate that. I feel like a lot of Snape renditions in spin-off or spoof material is just people doing bad Alan Rickman impressions, myself included. So I appreciate that this one, whether it's just such a bad Alan Rickman that it doesn't sound like Alan Rickman, or if it's this person's own unique take on it, I like that he was just a snooty fancy boy turned into a grown man with a truly atrocious wig.
You know, that's a great point. Very few of the character impressions being done are directly working with the movie.
Mhm.
They're doing really different things with the characters, and that's they've resisted the really easy low-hanging fruit in that sense.
Yes.
They're doing something different with the characters.
Yes, I like that a lot. So Bellatrix is back, and as I've established in the first episode, she is pretty much my least favorite part of the play. And I feel bad because I didn't really dislike anyone's performance except for hers. It just felt super theater kiddie to me. So I wasn't happy. And then also the thing that you noted, and this is probably contributing to it, is that whether it's the position of her microphone or the mixing of it, anytime she talks, it's so ear-piercingly loud. And it doesn't make for a good viewing experience.
Yeah, there's some real mixing issues. There's a later point when I think Ginny sings a song where she's so low down in the mix you can't hear her over the instruments.
And she's got the best voice.
She's got a really solid voice, which I've heard in like other sort of cast recordings when you can actually hear her. She's great. This is the amateur live theater being recorded. They are working against a lot of things here.
Mm-hmm. But again, I want to talk to the people that made it to try to understand what the situation was, because I want to know how much they just did on their own, or if they got any help from the school that they did this at, because who's to say? This could have been just all college kids in their free time, and that would have been super impressive.
It really feels like all college kids in their free time, but you know what? You'll find out.
Hopefully. So she is sharing her evil plan to Voldemort, who isn't paying attention. He's distracted, obviously, because of the coral stuff. So she storms off, and Voldemort goes, "No, man, now 2 people are mad at me," which is just such a boy thought of only considering, oh no, multiple people are upset with me. That's all I care about. So Snape has a means of sneaking the Death Eaters into Hogwarts, but he can't say because of an unbreakable vow. He says, "I can't." And Voldemort goes, "Can't," and then slides across the table and goes, "You tease!" Which I appreciate the theatrics of the characters. It's why I like the Draco flopping around. So when Voldemort's being over the top dramatic as well, I'm a fan.
I find for whatever reason, something about the Voldemort that they cast, his physical embodiment, the costume he's wearing, I found him so off-putting.
Is it the lack of shirt?
The lack of shirt is definitely part of it. The sort of weird skull makeup is part of it. The really shrieky voice is part of it. Like, I just found him very hard to stomach.
Okay.
Which is fine. Like, he's the villain. I'm not supposed to like him.
Right.
But I really did not like him.
Okay. I was a fan, and I think this was more true in the first act than the second, of just the humanizing element of him, like kind of making him a normal dude, but at the same time, he still wants to murder a 12-year-old kid. But I appreciate his more reserved moments. So I agree with you that when he's doing the things, whether he's yelling or being evil or when he's fighting Harry, it's not as fun. But it's very fun when, like at the end, when he's having the conversation with Quirrell. Those are the things that I really enjoyed. So Snape says that he brought someone who can tell him and help, and it's Draco. Voldemort laughs in his face and then says Lucius Malloy's boy, which I appreciated that just because my autocorrect on the notes app that I use always wants to turn Malfoy into Malloy. And I just, as someone that's really struggled to get my notes to say Malfoy, not Malloy, liked that this came up, accidental or otherwise.
Great. I like the part where Draco just responds by going, "It's Malfoy."
Yeah, it's really solid.
It's good.
Then Draco does something that I really appreciated, which was, if this homemade dark mark won't convince you, and the camera zooms in, and it's actually very well drawn. Whoever's done the drawings, the dragon drawings are really good. This drawing is really good. It's a well-drawn happy face with a cute-looking snake for the tongue. And I thought that was a fun joke on the dark mark.
You know what? I actually really liked that joke.
Yeah. And it's really quick, and I'm proud of the cameraman for getting it, because that could have been something that just did not translate at all into the YouTube video, but they nailed it, which was nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the funniest jokes for me are the ones that like just give you a second and then move on, right? They don't spend 5 minutes belaboring this dark mark joke. It's like, here it is. We set up a bit, we reveal the bit, we move on with our lives. And I'm like, all right, a funny bit of business.
Speaking of, the next joke that I've taken note of is exactly like that. Voldemort is still laughing at Draco and says, how do you suggest we get my Death Eaters into your little daycare center? And don't suggest a giant slide or a trampoline because we've already tried those. Which is great.
Right?
It's good. Quick little joke.
A funny bit of business. And again, those quick jokes are much funnier to me than like the recurring joke about, oh God, what is his name? Grumbledore?
Oh, Rumble Roar.
Rumble Roar. Thank
Yeah,
you.
pig farts wasn't my favorite recurring joke.
Which is, I think, we're about to get like a reprise of that song by Draco, right?
Well, kind of. So Draco suggests that the vents of Hogwarts, which is just funny that Hogwarts would have a ventilation system, and that's how you can sneak in.
Fair.
That's how you can get into the castle. He says that he will describe it further, but in exchange, he wants a rocket from Voldemort to get him to Mars so that he can go to pig farts.
Is the joke that Draco is dumb?
The joke is that Draco in book 4 talked about transferring to Durmstrang. And then I think the added joke is that this very clearly seems like pig farts is not actually real and Draco's just making this up because he's insecure. And then the big reveal towards the end of this act is that it actually is real. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Not my favorite. And I think what they do a lot is it's one of those jokes that's just a callback for the sake of doing a callback. Mm-hmm. And I've done a lot of improv in my day. I've seen a lot of bad improv because of it. And I think it's important that people know that just because some joke was made before and you make it again, that does not make it funny. The first joke has to be funny for a callback to work.
Yeah, absolutely. A callback for the sake of a callback is not the strongest way to establish humor, but it is a pretty good way to establish a like really intense insider culture around a particular piece of media. Right? If the whole premise is like, it's funny to just name this thing and know what it is, then a Harry Potter musical is doing a great job of that.
Yeah, I like that pig farts existed. I think I would have liked the joke more if it wasn't so belabored, like you're saying. But there are some funny things because Darren Criss, his Twitter account, his location is still listed as pig farts, even though he has 2 million followers and he's Darren Criss now. So I think little homages like that are fun. So I appreciated it for what it was. I just think they try to make this joke too much to the point where it's like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
One thing that I did enjoy is that Voldemort's wand is comically long. It is like a teacher's pointer stick, and they never really address it. I just did appreciate that. How are we going to make the Elder Wand? Well, it's just 3 times as long as everybody else's wand. And that's that.
You know, I was thinking about that. I was recently rereading the first book, and in that original Ollivander's scene, Ollivander is talking about the length of wands, and they vary from 6 to 13 inches in his description of them. And you absolutely do not see that in the movies. People are not walking around with wildly different wand lengths.
No, they're all about the same length. And I believe that the wand I did, according to Wizarding World, the website formerly known as Pottermore, that I got the longest length, which I think is 14.5 inches, which seems incredibly cumbersome.
So it's much too long. It's extremely impractical.
And there's so many scenes where they put it into their pockets. How? It's so big.
Yeah. You're really asking for a, is that a wand in your pocket kind of joke there.
Or you're just asking for it to break in half. It's so large.
It's so breakable when it's like, 14.5 inches, very bendy. It's like, this is a recipe for disaster.
So Voldemort asks Draco why Mars. Draco then just starts to do a pig fart song, which I went, oh no, I really don't want this. But Snape cuts him off, which then made me happy because then the joke is just, we're not going to let him get into a pig fart song, which I was very appreciative of because I didn't want to hear one.
Fair enough. This production is really fooling you into taking relief at the fact that it's not going to make you listen to a bad song.
Yeah, I'm giving it credit for making me not have to do something I was dreading that they did in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like the entertainment equivalent of the relief when somebody stops hitting you.
So Voldemort's deal is that Draco is going to lead the Death Eaters into the castle and take care of Dumbledore and kill him, while Voldemort attacks the Ministry and takes care of Fudge. They make an unbreakable vow, which they do by just doing a spit handshake, which I think is fun. Again, very fun, low-budget thing. Mm-hmm. And then Draco, at the very last minute before they let go, does the classic, and you have to be my slave for a whole day starting now, maneuver, which I appreciate Draco just being a child.
The funniest part of that joke is that Voldemort then says that's the second time somebody's done that to me.
That's why I hate Unbreakable Vows.
Yeah.
Those are the moments of Voldemort that I like, when they bring him down a peg. It's very fun.
Yes.
So Draco then starts to break into another song, but then the lights cut to black. And this is funny. This is a callback that works because he was cut off before and it was funny, and now it happened a second time. So now it's a bit. This is the kind of callback where if Draco kept trying to break into song throughout and they kept not letting him, I thought that would have been very fun.
Mm-hmm. Hypothetically.
If I rewrote a Harry Potter musical, there'd be chocolate bars everywhere.
I was going to say there would be a lot more prop comedy.
A big Butterfingers.
Where things are like, look, this chocolate bar is so large. This wand is so long.
It's just all big props. That's my my entire brand of humor is large props. So the squad is about to don the invisibility cloak to talk to Dumbledore. Ron is upset about not having a snack, and then someone from the band hands him a bag of Twizzlers, which the breaking of the fourth wall, which I think is good. Unfortunately, and I'll get into this later on in the play, they start breaking the fourth wall way too much to where it becomes overdone and tired.
Yep. If you eliminate the fourth wall entirely, then you don't have a fourth wall to break anymore.
Right.
And then it's not a joke.
So Harry gets Hermione and Ron to kind of make up because they were fighting, and then Dumbledore welcomes them in wearing a very tight shirt and having a Zac Efron poster. And this is something that you alluded to earlier on, is that the whole joke is just Dumbledore's gay, so let's put him in a shirt that doesn't fit.
Yep. So much of the humor. I mean, I also think this is sort of fundamentally part of the what's funny about Voldemort and Quirrell and what's funny about this portrayal of Dumbledore is that gay things are funny. And the fact that all of the boys are like really into Zac Efron is like, it's funny because it's gay. And if the premise of anything is it's funny because it's gay, it's not funny.
Yeah, I think what made me enjoy the Voldemort Quirrell thing is that there was more complexity to it than just, oh, it's funny because it's two dudes. It was funny because they're back to back under the same cloak and they actually don't really like each other that much in the books. And it's bringing Voldemort down to a human level, and they treat it like they're actually in a relationship, which I think is funnier. So I think that's why I enjoyed that more. The Zac Efron thing, boys liking him, I think I can be the representative of 2009 in that we genuinely did think Zac Efron was very cool. I don't think it's a let's make fun of it because he's a boy. Even if you poked fun at him, deep down, every boy about my age knew deep in their heart that they wanted to be Zac Efron. He was good at basketball and legitimately good at basketball in the play, not just in High School Musical. He plays a basketball player. Zac Efron can hoop, and he's a good looking dude. He had what all of our haircuts wanted to be, but they were bad bowl cuts. He had the one that actually looked good because he had a hair and makeup department.
This is why you had a bowl cut. Okay.
It was like you wanted that. Like that was what everyone's bowl cut aspired to be, but no one could actually achieve. And then he's dating Vanessa Hudgens in the show, but then also in real life. And we all had big crushes on Vanessa Hudgens. So I think the admiration for Zac Efron is actually genuine. But I would agree. I think of these three things, the Dumbledore one for me landed the least in that it just boils down to, oh, it's funny because he's gay. And earlier on when they did that, it was short little jokes like he calls Snape a brave, sexy man. And then, oh, that's kind of fun. And that's it. But now when you have this extended joke of it, it becomes less fun. And then it, like you said, once you start to think about it a little more, it doesn't feel as great.
I mean, I think part of the problem here, like I get the joke of Dumbledore has been established as being a gay character. What would it look like if we actually saw him being gay? There's something interesting there. But when you think about what does it mean for a character to look gay or to enact queerness visibly on a stage, all of the ways that they represent this are like harrowing stereotypes.
Yes. Really tight shirt, framed picture of a cute boy.
It's insultingly reductive.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Dumbledore describes Horcruxes to Harry. He does make a good quick joke of saying, I took care of the first 5, there's just one left, and then gives him the Sword of Gryffindor. Mm-hmm. And he also gives Harry a Horcrux-seeking medallion, which I think is the perfect level of convenient to move this play along. It works, it gets the job done. But then there's something here that didn't make sense to me. Hermione goes to Dumbledore and says, okay, if Harry has to do this all himself, why are Ron and I here? And then Dumbledore goes into a thing about them all being in this together, which is a High School Musical joke. But 5 seconds ago, Dumbledore was mad at Harry for bringing Ron and Hermione and not coming alone. So I don't know how you keep flip-flopping this and not address that in the script. It took me out of it because that didn't make any sense.
You're asking, wild to ask for character consistency in this property. Absolutely wild.
It's the line consistency. Like 3 lines ago, you yelled at Harry for bringing his friends, and then 3 lines later, you're saying that, no, it's important that he brings the friend. I don't know, man.
Wasn't this written by like one person writing a line and handing it to the next person and just like writing the next line and handing it to the next person?
It was actually written solely from a big book of Harry Potter Mad Libs. And that's how they made the play.
Absolutely perfect.
So the Death Eaters break into Dumbledore's office. He puts on the fake beard over his beard. The squad hides under the invisibility cloak. But then Ron speaks at some point, which alerts the Death Eaters that someone is in the room invisible. I do appreciate that one of the Death Eaters asks, could the Predator be in here? Again, just making a pop culture reference. I appreciate it. And Dumbledore then gives himself over willingly. And the Death Eaters say, oh, you were betrayed by someone you trust. And he goes, who? And then Malfoy walks in and Dumbledore goes, Malfoy, you little shit.
Great joke.
So then Snape enters and he is trying to get Draco to kill Dumbledore. He says, kill him, do it, Draco. Draco says, I don't think I can. And Snape goes, coward, 10 points from Gryffindor. Which is very good. Snape then kills Dumbledore and all of the Death Eaters start to laugh. And that's the end of that scene. I guess you can't get into the complexities of the Snape-Dumbledore thing, but it was very much set up in a way where it didn't really seem like there was any intrigue to why he did it, because Dumbledore is legitimately pleading for his life, as opposed to in the book where he says, Severus, please, which you realize is him saying, please do it. I don't know. I get that we're not supposed to be going super in-depth in this, but this whole scene wasn't my favorite.
No, it's not strong when they're just trying to sort of plug in the necessary plot points to move things along.
Right.
You can often feel how deeply shaky the foundation to this whole thing is.
Yeah, and this is where I didn't anticipate them doing this. I didn't realize that the first one was going to basically have all of the books. It makes sense in hindsight because how would they have known that it would have been so big where they could have made 2 more of these? But at least the first act established, okay, it's a little bit of book 1, a little bit of book 2, and a good chunk of book 4. And I was surprised that then in Act 2, they drop all of the book 4 stuff. They never do another task. And then it just solely becomes book 7 and a little bit of book 6 in there. So I felt like they tried to do a whole lot, and you're right, it's just kind of them checking the boxes of Harry Potter things to happen. And if you don't even actually end up killing Dumbledore, I wish someone would have told them like, hey, you guys don't have to do everything. It's okay. You don't have to do every single thing. I'm surprised Umbridge didn't get in the mix at some point.
I mean, I imagine some form of edits might have helped at some stage, but that's fine.
So the next scene, the squad is all freaking out about Dumbledore being dead, mostly Harry, and Harry does his, I gotta be alone, I want to keep you safe, no one can be around me, etc. So then we've seen where Voldemort breaks into Fudge's office, and this is the great joke that you had brought up earlier in the episode, is that Voldemort is confronting Cornelius Fudge in person, and he says, I still don't believe you're back.
It's a solid bit of business.
And then Voldemort kills Fudge with the Vada Kedavra, but then Fudge goes, a heart attack, surely.
That's great.
It's really solid. So Bellatrix is here, and she wants Voldemort. So he lays her down on the desk. Then, this is the first moment that I truly felt gross. He says, now sit up, bitch. And that just didn't need to be in there at all.
It's quite an unpleasant moment. It also gave me a visceral ooh.
Yeah. Saying that, and then it being a sexual tensiony moment, it started to go in an uncomfortable direction for me. Thankfully, it's quickly diverted because the setup is that when she says, what do you want to do or how do you want it, they end up just sitting back to back in the way that Quirrell and Voldemort were. So that was better, but I could have done without the not fun sexual vibes that happened before.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing, I think I am correct when I say that this is entirely written by men.
I believe you are correct.
And you can really feel it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Hopefully they get not men in the room for 2 and 3.
Perhaps.
I literally don't know.
You know what? And I'll never find out. But I hope that you do.
I will. I'll have to. So he calls her Quirrell, and she gets mad and storms off. She does note that he's done it a dozen times, which feels like a lot. Harry then sings a sad song about Dumbledore, and it's really solid. I think this was a very good instance of, oh, this is why Darren Criss became Darren Criss. I think this song showcases his vocal talents a bit more. But the best part of this song is that the next verse is done by Quirrell in a very bad low-budget prisoner's outfit with a plastic ball and chain and a black and white horizontal striped gown, and he starts singing. Both of these actors' voices are very solid, and they hit some harmonies that sounded very pleasant to me, even with the recording quality not being the best.
Yeah, it's a really solid song, and it sounds decent in the recording.
Yeah, this song made me want to go back and listen to if they made an album, a studio recorded version of it. I would want to listen to this song because those two dudes, very solid.
Yeah.
So let's end this on a high note for this episode so we can have a warm feeling in all of our hearts, since I'm sure most of the people listening enjoyed a Harry Potter musical, but we'll pick up the remaining bits of Act 2 next time. But Hannah, thanks so much for joining along, even if you're not the biggest fan of this musical.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. There's nothing I love more than ruining things for people.
I think it's not ruining. It's allowing people to think critically about something that they love. And I don't think you've been trashing on it by any means. All of the points you've brought up have been incredibly valid.
Mm-hmm. That's the best way to ruin things.
Is very credibly. And that's how you're a doctor, which I'll never forget. So if people want to find you doing stuff on the internet or in the podcast universe, where can they do so?
You can check me out on Twitter at HKP McGregor, or find my current active podcast, Secret Feminist Agenda, at secretfeministagenda.com.
Sweet. Well, Hannah, thank you Dr. Hannah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thank you for listening. And as they say in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, before they consume a giant chocolate bar, wizard on! Hey, normally I promote multitude stuff here, but I'm instead going to talk about ways that you can help the Black Lives Matter movement. You can donate to mutual aid funds, you can donate to the NAACP LDF, or Reclaim the Block. You can text RESIST to 50409 to get hooked up with ResistBot and sign and send petitions to your local government. You can search Stream to Donate on YouTube. You'll find videos where all of the ad revenue is getting donated to charity, and you can educate yourself about how to be a better ally, learn about the movement and more at blacklivesmatters.carrd.co/#educate. Potterless is created by Mike Schubert, it is hosted by Mike Schubert, it is edited by Mike Schubert, it is produced by Mike Schubert, as well as Vicky Garcia, Aaron Johnson, Klaus Lopu, Marchismo, Samantha Rose, Juan Sanfilio, Rosemary Dodge, Marie Lisa C. Keen, Romina Rivadeneira, Audra Eleanor Curlin, Nikita Power, Ali Madsen, Amelia Krause, Sarah Nink, Ben Silver, Rachel Guthrie, Zachary Pulido, Orca Grower, Vivian the Owl, Haley Hastings Moser, Alex Consilver, John Kotker, Noel Basile, Liz Bigelow, Brandon Pickens, Claire Spencer, Rory Collier, Veronica Bartova, Lotta Bartova, Noah, Tracy Toya, Colleen, Jennifer Mark, Frida J. Svensson, Summer Rathel, Justin Montero, Jacob Parrish, Maya Gray, Mark Body, Polly Burridge, Zena Rosnowski, Harlan Haskins, Noelia, Addie, Nikki Harris, Kine, Amanda Alfred, Alicia McLaren, Kafir Shaltiel, Sarah Shetter, Marta Morrison, Eileen Gazesh, Keegan Curran, Mr. Folk, Maya, Floor Sake, Siri Scarsford, Georgia Davis, Skylar Lilly, Edel Ryan, Professor Threat, Ellie Hoskov-Chova, Elizabeth Christofferson, Michael David Yordi, Kelly Otilio, Kerry Crumpler, Connie Bienkowski, Jen Wendt, Nedry OS, Will Huser, Samantha Lentz, Aurora Fruhoff, Marco Cepeda, Courtney Marie Grieger, Ashton Gabrielson, Brittany Gutierrez, Fail on the Meadows Family, Ginny from the Block, McKenna Tweedy, Heather Langeal, Brad Harding, Brianna Kusumano, Kevin Stewart, Lori McDonald, Chrissy Tew, Charles Fiven, Ashley Enstrom, Peter McGrath, Sophie Duda, Jen and Rose Dowd, Callahan and Darius, Leah Reed, Melissa Robb, Bella Barlack, Melanie Demi, Elizabeth Yu, Britt McLean, Becca Spry, Reese Dignan, Adam Graham, Joseph Torp, Lily's Mom, T-Run Money, Madison Kyle, Don't Call Me Nin Fedora, GK Have It Your Way, Sabrina Balsiker, Sophia Loves Pigs, Farzan Jarabat, Melanie DeGrave, David Douglas, Matt Barger, Okamahime, Yimki Bony Pony, Jacob Rossitano, Kelsey Gillespie, Taco Blowfish, Rike Mango Jensen, Taylor Payne, Rachel Mobbs, Megan Moon, Alicia Chapman, Riley Kiddis, Colleen Waters, Laurel Happy, Rossanne Batamana, Erica Butler, Miranda Hurley, Landon Schwausch, Kendra Hertz, Natanya Page, Yogan Shanley, Darcy Alexandra Harrison, Richard Johnson, Sandra Rose, Kremik Roberts, Andren Kaufman, K.A. Robb, Steve Trelaw, Leor Nachum, Angela Hill, Julia Buzak, Demi Lynn, Kelsey Wellis, Michael Beck, Callista Delano, She Who Doesn't Have to Be Named, Elle Kringle, Lovekesh Longer, Jennifer Terzian, Crystal Pollard, Henrique Wolf, Jeremy Elmore, Delkis, Katrina Smith, Jerica Law, Michelle Spurgeon, Casey Canales, Megan Stempin, Let's Hit 1,000 Patrons, Serenity, Alan Jax, G, Sophia Lyon, Sot, Matthew Babbitt, Dane Nemchar, Lisa Light, Rochelle Unatmaz, Kirsty, Steamed Nuggets, and Can't I Potter? Web design by Kelly Schubert, and the music is by Bettina Campamanes. If you want to find us on social media, you can at facebook.com/Potterlist, twitter.com/PotterlistPod, instagram.com/PotterlistPodcast, and reddit.com/r/Potterlist. For any and all information about the show, you can go to potterlistpodcast.com. For bonus content, you can go to patreon.com/Potterlist, and for merch, you can go to potterlistpodcast.com/merch. If you want to tell someone about the show, whether it's you reaching out directly or leaving a rating and review online, that would really help. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, as they say in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, wizard on!